Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Fanfic Series 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto, the clever hero, married femme Kyuubi, Hinata, Ino, Anko, and Kurenai. Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Wave Finale. zabuza's hideout. Haku was currently watching over a bed-ridden Zabuza since he has yet to recover. Haku's attention was drawn to the entrance of the room, however, when Geto and two samurai bodyguards walked into the room. Hey, so even the great demon the mist lost, pathetic. Haku was on alert when she saw Geto's two bodyguards start to draw their swords and attack. Geto stopped them though when he saw what they were about to do. He then started to walk towards Zabuza and was about to pull down his mask. However, his hand never reached its destination as Geto's arm was grabbed by a furious Haku. Don't touch Zabuza-san with you dirty hands. His guards were about to draw their swords and charge at Haku, only for Haku to appear in the middle of them with one of their swords in each of her hands pressed against their throats. Oh, one more time. I'll give you one more try, but if you fail, Geto said in panic, trying to sound threatening but failing horribly. Geto and his guards ran out of the room as fast as they could to get away from Haku. Haku then turned to Zabuza and said, Geto's probably going to turn on us, what should we do? Zabuza, who hadn't spoken the entire time throughout the ordeal, said, You're right, things are starting to look bleak. First we have to face off against the Sharingan, which wouldn't normally be a problem. But there is also that Gaki with the key. Even if we somehow defeat them, Geto will most likely use that chance to finish us off while we're weak instead of paying us. Like I said, what should we do? Haku repeated herself. Running is out of the picture. Although Geto is a worm, he still has many connections that could prove annoying. Killing him, although very appealing, is also out of the picture. If we do that, the commotion that it would cause would have Kiri after us again. Haku and Zabuza started to think over their situation, trying to think of any way to avoid any danger. Finally Haku spoke up. I know you probably won't like this, but how about we try to ask the Konoha nin for help, and work together with them to bring down Geto. This way his death will be pointed towards the Konoha nin and it will seem as if we were never here. Zabuza's eyes widened a little then narrowed. Even if we try to get their help, what makes you think they will give it to us? I don't, but it's the only option we have. I'll go meet up with them since they don't know my face, so they won't attack me straight out. Haku said, sure that their ruse with her being a hunter nin had already been figured out. Bridge. Naruto was currently yawning to himself while he was just standing around on the bridge doing nothing but watching over Tazuna. To sum it up in one word, it was boring. Hey Naruto, where's the other two? Tazuna said while noting the blonde's boredom. Oh, those two are doing some training right now, he responded to Tazuna's question. What about you? Tazuna asked, though his thoughts were along the lines of, well, not that he really needs it. I mean, he did overpower Zabuza. Nah. I already did the training they're doing right now. Not much point in me staying there, so Kakashi-sensei sent me here to guard you and the other bridge builders, Naruto responded, followed by another yawn. A man then came over and called out Tazuna's name, who then proceeded to walk over to the man wondering what he wanted. Naruto looked over towards the two with interest, seeing how heated the conversation was. Naruto then saw the Tazuna dismiss everyone, saying that it was enough for the day. So what was that all about? Naruto asked when Tazuna walked back towards him. Tazuna sighed with his shoulders slumping. That was Gichi. He said he wanted to stop working on the bridge. More and more people are starting to quit for fear of their lives and what Geto may do to those who are standing up to him. At this rate we may never get the bridge done if everyone keeps quitting. In town. Naruto and Tazuna were currently walking through the town of Wave on their way to pick up food for tonight. Naruto was looking around at how poor the town was and noted and depressed everyone was. He even saw children sitting around homeless. Naruto then felt a tug on his pants and he looked down to see a young kid holding his hands out. Naruto ended up giving the kid some candy and smiles slightly as the kid's face lit up. It has been like this since Geto showed up, Tazuna said. Everyone has lost hope. This is why we need the bridge. The bridge is not only so we can get out from under Geto's grasp but also a symbol of courage so everyone can stand up for themselves. Tazuna, no matter what happens, I'll free this village and I'll make sure that Geto can never do something like this again, Naruto said with determination in his face with his hands clenched into fists. Tazuna's house. Everyone was currently sitting around a table eating dinner. Sasuke and Sakura looked exhausted from the training and were glaring at Naruto, who was able to skip out on it. Sakura then saw a picture on the wall and asked about it, which led into a conversation that ended with Inari charging out of the room. Tazuna then told the tale about the hero of Wave, who happened to be Inari's father but not by blood. After Tazuna had finished telling the story, Naruto was beyond pissed at what Geto had done. He knew he needed to go relieve his anger. He then stood up and looked towards Kakashi. Sensei, I'm going to go do some of my own training. He then left the room not even waiting for a response and found an area in the dense forest out of sight and called out his keyblade and started to relieve his anger on the trees around him. Time skip next day. Haku was walking through the forest. Currently walking through the forest look for herbs to help heal Zabuza, but to her surprise she happened upon a part of the forest that was completely destroyed. However, the method that the trees were destroyed varied between many different ways. In one area she could see that the trees were chopped down. In another they seemed to be either burned to cinders or blasted apart from what looked like a lightning strike. What surprised her most though were the trees that were either frozen or the giant pile of trees that looked as if they had been uprooted and then crushed together. What could have happened here? The trees are completely devastated, and not by just one way either, were the thoughts of the scared Haku. Then she saw something that stuck out the most, for in the middle of all the destruction stood one tree, which usually wouldn't have looked all that strange in a forest. Why is that tree still standing? She then headed over towards the tree and walked around it only for her eyes to widen and for her to gasp. The reason for her surprise was because of what she found behind the tree, for what she saw was the blonde Konoha nin that had fought off Zabuza before. Are you telling me he did all of this? I must tell Zabuza, no matter what happens we mustn't face him, for surely we would die. Wait, maybe I could use this as a chance to ask him to relay a message to his sensei asking for help. She then went over and was about to gently shake the boy awake only for her to be surprised when the boy spoke up. Hello, lovely day isn't it? My, it seems you were already awake. Do you mind telling me what happened here? She asked with a fake calmness. Her thoughts on the other hand were like a raging storm. Was he awake this whole time? Ah. Well, I kinda got a little pissed off yesterday and needed a way to relieve some of it. And as you can tell I think I went a little overboard, he said sheepishly while scratching the back of his head. How about you, Hunter Nin? What are you doing here? He asked, further surprising her. How did you know? Did you really think a mask would matter to someone who couldn't see? He asked. He then asked another question that made her stiffen. So how's Zabuza doing? He knows that Zabuza's alive, so I was right, they did see through it. But how can he be so calm when an enemy is so close to him? Or maybe he's so calm because he knows he could kill me whenever he wants to, she thought to herself while shivering at the last part. So what are you going to do? Are you going to kill me? She asked, fearful of what he may do. Nah. You haven't attacked me yet, nor do you seem hostile, he said nonchalantly, seemingly without a care in the world. He's not going to kill me. Does that mean he's just going to let me get away? Surely not. He's probably going to bring me to his team so they could interrogate me, she thought, wondering what the blonde may do. Well, if you're not going to kill me, can you relay a message to your sensei? She asked, acting upon her plan, and maybe the only way to get out of this safely. Oh, and what would that be? He asked, interested in what she may have to tell him. Gato is going to betray us and most likely kill us whether we complete this mission or not. We've decided to ask you and your team for help against him, she said. She saw the boy thinking it over. Usually I would suspect this as a trap, but from what I heard of this Gato, it sounds like something he'd do. Alright, I'll relay a message to Kakashi-sensei. Meet me here tomorrow and I'll have an answer. Don't worry, I'll come alone. Haku then started to walk away, but she turned back to ask him a question. Do you mind telling me why you became so strong? This seemed to gain the boy's interest. The reason I've gained this strength, I think I know, but I'm not too sure. You know, I believe that true strength comes from when someone wishes to protect what is precious to them, she said, making the boy gain a thoughtful look. You know what? I think you may be right. I never got your name. Mine's Naruto, by the way. At this she let out a little giggle. My name is Haku. It was nice to meet you, Naruto. She started to walk away again before he said something that caught her off guard. You know, you shouldn't wear a mask that hides such a pretty face. This caused her to blush and walk faster while she heard a chuckle coming from the blonde. But then she paused for a second. Wait, how does he know how I look like? I thought he couldn't see. With Naruto. Hee. She was pretty cute. Good thing that clone popped and woke me up, he thought to himself. For you see, Naruto had created a clone to stand guard in the branches of the tree he was sleeping on, and for some reason the clones do not gain the power over darkness like he does, so they do not have to wear the blindfold that is used to seal said darkness. He got up then started to head towards Tazuna's house to inform Kakashi about the proposition that had arisen during his conversation. Tana's house. So Zabuza and this Haku wish to team up with us to kill Gato? Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow. This could be a trap. That crossed my mind too, but with what we've heard of this Gato guy so far it sounds like something he would actually do, Naruto responded. So, what do you think we should do? Kakashi asked, wanting to hear the boy's opinion. Truthfully, I say we go with it and see how it plays out, Naruto said. If it's a trap, I'm pretty sure I can handle it. If not, I'm sure I would be able to escape. Kakashi sighed. It would be great if they were telling the truth, but if it is a trap and if anything were to happen to Naruto, he then looked Naruto in the eye. Alright Naruto, we'll go with you plan. But that is only if you send out a clone to meet them while you watch over what happens. Okay. I'll send out a clone and hide and watch over the meeting. If I see them act suspicious at all, I'll make a break for it, he said, while Kakashi seemed to be trying to confirm the blonde's words that he won't do anything reckless. Also Kakashi, I think we should wait to inform Sasuke and Sakura about this until after we have a plan set, Naruto said, making Kakashi raise his eyebrow. Why do you think that, Naruto? Kakashi questioned, only for Naruto to sigh. I have a feeling that they would disagree with the plan to team up with them. The reason I think they would disagree is mostly because of Sasuke's arrogance, while Sakura would just follow his lead. What does his arrogance have to do with this? Kakashi asked, interested in where Naruto is heading with this. To be honest, Sasuke sees having a team as burden, thinking he could do anything on his own. He would probably see it as a sign of weakness to have the enemy help him, making him against the idea, and as I said before, Sakura would just agree with anything Sasuke says, Naruto informed Kakashi of his thoughts. Sadly, I think you're right. Alright, we'll tell them once we have a plan, that way it will be too late for them to mess anything up, Kakashi said, agreeing with Naruto's opinion of his teammates. Kakashi was also currently going over Naruto's words in his head. Damn, he's right. The Uchiha's arrogance really would make him see things that way. Something has to be done about it before he gets either himself or this team killed. Alright Naruto, go prepare yourself however you need to for when you meet with them. But do this without alerting either of your teammates of what's happening. Otherwise we may not have a choice whether they know or not, Kakashi said before he went to go do some training himself to try to get his body back to 100%. Time skip. Meeting spot. Naruto was hiding in a set of trees that hadn't been destroyed by his onslaught from when he was relieving himself of his anger. He was currently watching over one of his cage bunshin who was leaning against the tree where he met Haku the day before. He then saw two figures coming from the opposite direction of which he had entered the forest heading towards his clone. With zabuza and Haku, the duo were currently walking towards the blindfolded blonde who was leaning against a tree. To Zabuza's interest, though, it seemed as if the Gaki wasn't tense at all, nor was he letting his guard down either. Basically, he's saying he has no fear of us, but he's not letting his guard down either. This Gaki is getting more and more interesting. Hey Haku-chan. Zabuza-san. The Gaki greeted them. Now if Zabuza had any eyebrows, one of them would have risen just now. Haku-chan. Zabuza then turned his head to look at the said person, only for his eyebrow to raise even further when he saw her blushing. Well, I'll be damned, she's actually blushing. I don't think I've ever seen her blush before. Haku was currently sporting a blush across her face. She tried to compose herself only to fail with the blush still on her face. Chan. Why did he suddenly add a Chan? And why the hell am I blushing so much? Hello Naruto-kun. It's good to see you again, she said while further trying to compose herself only to blush at the little stutter. Damn it, what is wrong with me? Now both of Zabuza's eyebrows would have rose in shock if he had any. Holy shit, the Gaki's good. I can't believe she actually stuttered. Zabuza coughed into his hand, trying to draw the duo's attention while saving the girl some dignity before she heads straight towards becoming a stuttering mess. As I'm sure Haku-chan has told you, we are looking to team up with you and your team. The teasing tone he had when he said Haku-chan seemed to not have been missed if the glare he got from said girl was anything to go by, but he did note how she still had a blush across her face. Yeah, she told me how you don't trust Gato to hold up his end of the bargain and how he'll probably try to kill you either way, he heard the Naruto say. Good. You understand what we are dealing with then. Anyway, I have a plan on how to take Gato down if your side has agreed to the teaming up, Zabuza said. We agree. So what's the plan? Naruto asked, while Haku's shoulders seemed to relax a little in relief. Good. Anyways, to understand the plan, I will tell you what Gato's original plan was, Zabuza said. The original plan was going to be us fighting against your team on the bridge. Then from what I could gather, Gato was going to bring a group of mercenaries to finish off both sides once both were tired out and collect the bounties from both sides. This made Naruto nod. I can see that happening. Kakashi has quite a bounty from what I saw in the bingo book, while Zabuza's is especially high since he's a missing nin and also since he tried to assassinate the Mizukage. Now here's what I have planned, Zabuza continued. We will stick with me and Haku meeting your group on the bridge, but instead we'll have a staged fight and wait for Gato to show his ugly mug. Gato will bring a group of mercenaries, but I will tell you this right now, he believes in quantity over quality, so while they may have numbers, they should be easy to take out. Naruto seemed to be thinking the plan over before he gave a nod. Simple, but it should work, and from what I've heard of Gato, we won't need anything complex anyways. Alright, I'll head back and inform my team. Also, not that they could harm either of you, but I'll have to warn you, try to avoid my two other teammates. They may try to do something stupid. Alright, if we go with this plan, then Zabuza-san, you should have your staged fight with Kakashi-sensei while I'll be paired up with Haku. This way we can have those two hang back and guard Tazuna while staying out of the way and hopefully stop them from doing anything stupid. Alright. Also, one more thing. Gato is a sleazebag who would probably send some of his men after the bridge builder's family, Zabuza informed him. Naruto seemed to be thinking over this new information. I'll leave a Kage Bunshin with them. This answer shocked Zabuza. Wait, isn't Kage Bunshin supposed to be a Junin level? He decided to voice this. Kage Bunshin. Hee. Yup, a Kage Bunshin, the blonde said before disappearing in a poof of smoke. This further shocked Zabuza. Are you telling me we were talking to a clone this entire time? I couldn't even tell. I'm glad he's on our side, Haku said, with Zabuza agreeing with her. He then let a smirk cross over his face. although it could not be seen because of the bandages over his mask. So what's with the Haku-chan and all the blushing, huh? The blush ended up coming back full throttle, much to Zabuza's amusement. Nothing, she said before turning around and walking back to their hideout, making Zabuza chuckle to himself. That Gaki is getting more and more interesting. Tazuna's house. Once Zabuza and Haku had left the clearing, he went back to Tazuna's house and informed Kakashi of what happened, and of the plan he and Zabuza had devised. A staged fight to lure him out, huh? Sounds like it could work, and I agree with having the other two hang back to defend Tazuna. This way less complications will arise, Kakashi said while running his thoughts over the information he had just been told. That's my thoughts exactly. Although it may be hard to get the Uchiha to actually stay back, Naruto said, which caused Kakashi to sigh. I know. I would just order him to, but the chances of him actually following the order, I guess we'll have to deal with it when it happens. Hopefully we can control the situation enough so he'll cause minimal damage, Naruto said, also sighing. Well, I guess it's time to inform everyone about what's happening. Gotta say, thought I am not looking forward to the two's reaction yet. I find myself wondering what they'll actually do, Naruto said with a smirk, imagining the stupid stunts the duo may pull. Naruto then exited the room and gathered everyone and told them to follow him into Kakashi's room, although Sasuke refused at first, saying, I don't take orders from you. Finally, when the group had been gathered, Kakashi and Naruto proceeded to tell them about how they will be allying themselves with Zabuza to take down Gedo. The reactions had been mixed. Tazuna seemed slightly relieved at having someone like Zabuza on their side and not their enemy, although that seemed to be overshadowed by the determination in his eyes to finally free his village from under Gedo's tyrannical rule. As expected, Sasuke hadn't taken the news well. First, it started out with him arguing why he had been left out of the loop while the Dobi was not. Then his anger shifted to the thought of allying themselves with the enemy. The ever-loyal fangirl was also backing up Sasuke the whole way, while screeching out how Sasuke's so strong that he would be fine by himself and other things along the same line, while degrading Naruto when she wasn't praising the Uchiha. Finally, Kakashi had informed the duo how they were to stay back and out of the fight and guard Tazuna. Sasuke's anger increased even more. He glared at Kakashi, then turned his glare on Naruto before storming out of the room, cursing the duo the whole time. Everyone headed off to bed to prepare for the inevitable fight on the bridge tomorrow, and hopefully the end of Gedo's reign. Time skip next day. Bridge. Team 7 was currently standing on the bridge facing against Zabuza and Haku. The bridge had been evacuated the moment the duo had shown up so they would not get in their way. Stick to the plan. I'll confront Zabuza while Naruto faces off with Haku. All the while you two will hang back and guard Tazuna, Kakashi ordered, giving a stern look to the duo. Sasuke grit his teeth and glared at the back of Kakashi's head. How dare he make me hang back, while the Dobi gets to be in the middle of the battle. Naruto then shifted his body and was about to dash towards Haku to begin the farce of a battle, only to see Sasuke shoot past him. Shit, that idiot, he's going to ruin everything. With a clang, the two were in a deadlock, with Sasuke attacking with a kunai and Haku defending with a senbon. Haku was panicking a little but did not show it. What is he doing? He's ruining the plan. Wait, I see, this is the arrogant one that Naruto-kun was talking about. I'll try to knock him unconscious then. Haku then started to perform one-handed seals, surprising some of the people there. Hyoten. Sensatsu Susho. Ice release. 1,000 flying water needles of death. Once Haku had said this, the water around the duo rose into the air and froze into thousands of needles made of ice. The needles were all aimed for non-lethal areas that would paralyze or knock the opponent into blissful unconsciousness. Unfortunately, Sasuke had evaded the technique by focusing chakra into his legs and jumping straight up to avoid all the needles. Seems like it won't be as easy as I thought it would be to knock him unconscious, Haku thought while jumping back to avoid shurikens thrown at her. Sasuke had used the chance though to sneak behind Haku and engage her once again with his kunai, forcing her to block with a senbon. Sasuke was then able to lure Haku into the path of a kick that made Haku skid back and stop in front of Zabuza. While this was happening, everyone else had been watching on. Naruto thought was pissed off at what Sasuke was doing. Damn it, he's not holding back at all. He's actually trying to kill her. At least Haku is aiming for a non-lethal takedown, although I'm kinda disappointed at that thought too. Naruto then turned to face Kakashi. Sensei, I think it's best if we leave those two alone for the moment. Haku seems to be aiming to knock the Tem unconscious, so I'll either jump in if he is knocked unconscious or it seems like Haku's in danger. Kakashi thought this over before nodding. Alright, we'll stick to the original plan then, but you'll hang back for the moment instead of Sasuke. Haku decided that she had enough of this and decided to bring out her trump card. Hyoten, Makio Hyosho, Ice Release, Demonic Ice Mirrors. 21 mirrors of ice surrounded him and were created from the water around him. Haku then walked into one of the mirrors and her reflection was now visible on all of the mirrors. Sasuke was then under siege by hundreds of senbon that came from every direction, leaving him no room to dodge. This continued for a while until Sasuke had become a human pincushion. Although during the attack Sasuke was able to awaken the Sharingan, his body was just not able to move as he wished it to, making him unable to dodge the senbon even if he could predict their movement. Finally, Haku was able to hit a pressure point that caused Sasuke to be knocked unconscious. Damn, I'm using more chakra than I originally wished to. Once Naruto had saw Sasuke being knocked unconscious, he turned towards Kakashi. Well, seems like that problem's out of the way. Also, it seems my clone has ended up confronting what seemed to be two of Getu's goons. Naruto then faced towards Haku and let a grin cross his face. Well, it seems like it's my turn. Can't keep a lady waiting, as they say. Naruto and Kakashi then dashed towards their respective opponents to get their plan underway for real this time and hopefully without any further complications arising. During the fight between Naruto and Haku, Haku had decided to stop her jutsu so she could save chakra. In return, the fight mostly consisted of a taijutsu fight at a level where neither of them would be worn out once Getu decided to show up. The only problem during the fight was when Sakura had seen Sasuke's body that was filled with senbon. She ended up thinking he was dead and took out a kunai to charge at Haku. How dare you kill Sasuke-kun, you bitch, I'll kill you. However, she was quickly dispatched when Haku had dodged the slow kunai strike and had chopped Sakura on the back of the neck, knocking her unconscious. Naruto sighed when he saw Sakura charge at Haku, although when he saw how easily she was defeated he could only sweat drop. That was pathetic. Kakashi and Zabuza's fight had consisted of them exchanging low-level jutsus, water clones, and Zabuza also taking a few slow swipes at Kakashi with his Zanbato. After a little while, everyone had started to move sluggishly so as to give off the appearance that the battle was taking a toll on everyone so as to lure out Getu. Zabuza, you seem not to be doing too good, a voice suddenly spoke up, catching everyone's attention. Looking towards where the voice came from, everyone saw a group of people armed to the teeth, and in front of all these people was Getu himself. Keeping up with the act, Zabuza turned towards Getu and asked, Getu, what are you doing here with all these men? He plans have changed. Well, actually I planned to do this from the beginning, Getu said. Zabuza, you and your apprentice will die here. Getu then turned to his men and ordered, all right men, kill the shinobi, but leave women alive, they can still be used. Getu had said the last part with a lustful leer on his face while glancing towards Haku. I'll make that bitch pay for before. 4 of the mercenaries charged forth hoping to snatch up the women and maybe they'll be allowed to have a chance at them first, or hoping to get a bonus for killing the shinobi. Getu had a smirk as the men charged. Shinobi, hey, they're nothing but talk and now they're to worn out form their earlier fight. Once the mercenaries kill the men, I'll be able to get the bounty off of both Zabuza and the other white-haired nin while not having to pay Zabuza at all. Gedo thought while smirking to himself at how ingenious he thought his plan was. However, to his surprise, the 4 men were killed with ease. One of them had his throat slit by a kunai, another had his body cut in half, while the third one was a human pin cushion, but unlike Sasuke, this one was dead. The final one, though, was what scared the rest of the mercenaries and Gedo the most. His head was completely crushed by a punch to the face from the blindfolded blonde of the group. The corpse went flying past the group and ended up being flung off the bridge altogether, showing the strength of the blonde. What confused Gedo, though, was that the 4 people who had looked completely exhausted a second ago were all looking good as new. Wah, what the hell? All of you should be dead tired right now. What the hell is going on? Gedo screamed out, furious at being duped. Hey, Gedo, you're the real fool if you think I wouldn't figure out your little plan, Zabuza said, and although he seemed to be smirking at duping Gedo, he was also furious at what Gedo wanted to do with his daughter. His anger, however, was overshadowed by another, for next to him stood Naruto, who looked like he was physically holding himself from killing everyone before him. How dare he talk like that about Haku? However, something unexpected happened. Naruto's Keyblade had appeared in his hand without him willing it to, surprising him. What the hell? Wait, it's done this before, and it always happened when. All of a sudden, both the Keyblade and Zabuza's Zanbato started to glow brightly, surprising everyone there but Naruto. The most surprised, however, was the owner of the Zanbato. What the hell is going on? The brightness around the Keyblade became so bright that only a silhouette could be seen. Then the silhouette started to change shape. Once the shape had stopped changing, in Naruto's hand was a new Keyblade that looked to be as big as Zabuza's Kubikiribocho, decapitating carving knife. Kakashi turned towards Naruto and asked him, Naruto, what just happened? Why did your Keyblade change shape? Naruto glanced towards Kakashi and said, remember how I said there were many different forms to the Keyblade? Well, it seems had just unlocked a new form. And since Zabuza's sword was glowing too, I'm guessing this sword was based off of his. Luckily, when I get a new Keyblade, I can use a skill that allows me to scan it and allows me to know what its name is and its abilities, and from what I can tell, this Keyblade's name is Executioner. Naruto then gave a thoughtful look as he was sorting through the new information he had received about the Executioner Keyblade. I stand corrected. It seems only its size is based off of your sword, Zabuza. Its abilities, however, seem to be based off of you, if its ability to enhance water-style attacks is anything to go by, Naruto said, shocking the group. Zabuza was looking at the Executioner Keyblade in wonder. Wait, are you telling me that giant key thing you used to fight me has the ability to change its shape and abilities, and it's actually using me and Kubikiribocho as a base for this form? Naruto faced Zabuza and responded with a, yeah, pretty much. Now back to business. He then turned back to the group of mercenaries who had been trying to either stop their gaping at what they just saw or rubbing at their eyes to fix their sight after the bright flash that had momentarily blinded them. Hee, lucky me, I have a lot of scum to fight so I can test it out. However, it seemed the Keyblade wasn't done yet, as a dim glow shot out of it, causing a blue aura to shroud over both Zabuza and Naruto. Zabuza was confused on what was going on, while Naruto had a grin on his face that started to scare a few of the mercenaries. Hee. Zabuza, you're going to love this. Just follow my lead, you'll know what to do. Just trust your instincts and your body. With that said, Naruto charged forward, and strangely Zabuza found himself moving to follow after him without him even try to. What the hell is happening? Well, I guess I'll trust the Gaki for now. Naruto and Zabuza then disappeared from everyone's sight and appeared in the middle of all the mercenaries back to back. Even the other shinobi had been surprised by the speed the duo had displayed. However, the person who was surprised the most was Zabuza himself. What the hell just happened? There's no way I should have been able to move that fast. Naruto and Zabuza then started to move in perfect sync as they both spun around, still back to back, as they slashed at the people closest to them. After the initial attack, the two continued to move in perfect sync as Naruto started to do 360 spins while slashing with the Executioner Keyblade. However, from the tip of his blade it seemed that water was being produced and hitting enemies that were originally out of range. While Naruto did this, Zabuza would charge at enemies and slash them, and then after a couple of slashes he would jump up and slam his Zanbato on the ground in the middle of a group of enemies that would then produce pillars of water. While the two were attacking, neither of them seemed to interfere with each other. In fact, it seemed their attacks would weave between each other, allowing them to take down countless enemies all at once. Kakashi was watching on in shock. How the hell are they able to fight like that? They've never even fought as a team before, but here they are fighting in perfect sync. Zabuza! Naruto shouted while he held the executioner in a reverse grip with the blade being horizontally parallel to his body. It seemed that Zabuza immediately knew what to do as he held his sword out, and it looked as if the two weapons had combined at the hilt with the blades pointing in opposite directions. Naruto then said, "Focus then chakra, and now spin," and with that the chakra started to make the two blades spin in mid-air as both Naruto and Zabuza had jumped back. Once the two were a safe distance away, the blades had picked up speed. Enough speed in fact to make a small tornado in the middle of the bridge. The tornado, however, was made completely out of water and was sucking in all the mercenaries and sweeping them up in the current of the tornado. Immediately after Naruto and Zabuza's feet had touched the ground from when they had jumped away from the blades, they started to do hand signs, while still being in perfect sync as they would do each seal at the same time. Once the water tornado had died down, all of the mercenaries were all gathered up in a huge group in the middle of the air, disoriented and battered up. This was also the same time that Naruto and Zabuza had called out their jutsu as they had finished the last hand sign. Suiden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Water release. Water dragon bullet. Water rose up from the water around them and formed two dragons that then charged towards the group while their bodies were parallel to the ground while barely being above the ground. When the two dragons were about to collide with each other under the group of mercenaries, they shot up and started to coil around each other until both of the dragons collided with the group of mercenaries. All of the mercenaries were now dead while Geto, who had been out of harm's way, had watched on in horror. The shinobi all were gaping at what had just happened, not believing what had just happened before their eyes. The aura that had been around Naruto and Zabuza the entire time had finally died down after their final attack. Naruto then started to walk towards Geto, while Zabuza was frozen in shock at what he had just done. What the hell did I just do? There's no way I should have been able to do even half of what I just did. When Geto had seen one of the two that had decimated his mercenaries head towards him, he tried to back up away from him only to trip and land on his ass. He stared up helpless, fearing for his life. He then tried to beg for his life. "SP, spare me. I'll give you anything, just don't kill me. If it's money you want, I got it. Women, is that it? I can give that to you, just don't kill me." Naruto ignored what Geto was blubbering and raised his arm about to cut Geto down, but then Geto said something that caught his interest. Wait, if you kill me then the villagers will die. Naruto lowered his arm while narrowing his eyes at Geto. "Tell me what you mean the villagers will die." Wait, promise me you won't kill me. Then I'll tell you, Geto said, allowing some hope to rise, thinking he may still be able to get out of this with his life intact. Naruto glared at the man before saying, "All right, I promise I won't kill you." This seemed to snap everyone out of their shock and started to protest. "Naruto-kun, you can't be serious. You're going to let that scum live? Naruto, are you sure you know what you're doing? Gaki, what the hell are you doing? Just kill him." "No. I'll let him live as long as he tells me what he has planned for the village, and if it's true," he said, showing that he would not back down. He then turned towards Geto. "If you're lying to me, I'll give you a painful death." Alright. These mercenaries aren't all of the ones that I hired. I have another army of them back at my base, and should something happen to me, they've been ordered to attack the village, and don't think killing me will make them stop. I have a way to pay them even if I'm dead, Geto said. If you let me live, I can order off the attack and I'll leave Wave along. I'll move to somewhere else. It's the truth, I swear. He finished, while smirking on the inside. If he does let me live, I'll order them to attack anyways, and with the numbers back at the base it should be easy to take down these shinobi. Naruto then turned away. As promised, I won't kill you, he said, making Gedo smirk. But what Naruto said next replaced the smirk with fear. But I only promised that I wouldn't kill you. Zabuza on the other hand. With that, Naruto met up with the rest of the group while Zabuza was walking up towards Gedo with a demonic grin across his face that everyone knew was there even if they couldn't see it. Mary, mercy please, Gedo cried out while shaking in fear. Zabuza's grin seemed to grow even more. Sorry, all out of mercy. He then proved his sword worthy of its name as he separated Gedo's head from his shoulders. Naruto watched as Zabuza walked towards the group after he had killed Gedo. Once he was near enough, he asked, I take it you and Haku know where his main base is? Zabuza nodded while saying, yeah, I know where it is, although the mercenaries would be camping outside of the base since there wouldn't be enough room. Naruto nodded at this. He then turned to Tazuna. It would be best if you head back to the village. Bring the idiots with you while you're at it. Tazuna only nodded at this, grabbing the idiots while heading back to his village, excited to bring the good news of Gedo's demise and their freedom. Forest surrounding Gedo's base. The group that consisted of Naruto, Kakashi, Haku, and Zabuza were currently spying on the mercenaries that they had came to eliminate. Kakashi decided to speak up. He wasn't kidding that there were more. There has to be at least 5x the amount he brought to the bridge. The village would be overrun quickly without even being able to stand a chance. As Kakashi had stated, there was an army of mercenaries camping in a large clearing close to Gedo's base. The number of mercenaries seemed to number around a couple hundred. Naruto then had an idea of what to do, an idea that his Keyblade actually seemed to be trying to carry out on its own. Alright guys, I think I've got a plan, Naruto stated while turning towards the group next to him. Alright, I'm sure you all remember the attack that me and Zabuza had just performed. Zabuza then spoke up. Speaking of which, what the hell happened back there? There's no way I should have been able to do all that. I felt faster and stronger than ever before. Well, that's what is called a limit break. Basically, the Keyblade sends out an aura that allows someone to fight beyond what they originally should have been able to do. This aura covers two people who will then be connected to each other at an instinctual level, allowing them to perform a devastating combo and fight in perfect sync, and perform attacks that they would have never thought of before but find themselves doing. An example of this would be the final attack. Zabuza, I'm pretty sure doing that attack never even crossed your mind before, but you found yourself doing it anyways. This is the limit break. Everyone was shocked at this. No one could believe such a thing was possible but were unable to deny it as they had seen it done before their own eyes, in one case found themselves doing. Anyways, my plan is to perform another limit break, but this time with Haku, Naruto stated, getting an eep from said girl. W with me. Yup. I saw when you were fighting Sasuke earlier you were able to manipulate ice. Well, I have an idea for an attack that we could do, but it would probably require the limit break for us to pull it off, he stated. Haku's thoughts strayed back to when she first met Naruto. More specifically, her thoughts had focused on the frozen trees she had saw amidst the destruction. Alright, I'll do it. Good. Follow me. We need to find a spot that gives us a straight shot at the camp that will allow us to hit everyone. After a little bit, the group had happened upon a hill a little ways away from the camp but allowing them a view of the camp as a whole. Naruto then turned to face Haku. Alright, just trust me and trust your instincts. Naruto then had his Keyblade appear in his hand, but it was a Keyblade no one there had seen before. This Keyblade's name is the Mysterious Abyss. It gives a boost in ice attacks and abilities. Then an aura flowed out of the Keyblade and wrapped around both Naruto and Haku, but this time the color of the aura was of a lighter blue. As Zabuza had said, Haku found herself feeling stronger and faster than ever before. Naruto then lifted his right arm until his keyblade was pointed straight at the camp of mercenaries. Seeing this, Haku also found herself bringing her left arm and grabbed the handle of the keyblade along with Naruto. Haku blushed a little as she found her hand touching Naruto's but willed it away and became serious. Naruto then spoke up like he had when he and Zabuza were charging up for their final attack. Now focus your ice element chakra into the keyblade and charge it up. She did just that, but to her surprise she could feel something similar coming from Naruto also chagrining up the keyblade. The tip of the keyblade started to glow brightly the same frosty blue color as the aura surrounding them. Keep charging, almost there. Naruto and her kept charging the keyblade until finally Naruto said, now release it. Naruto and her then in the same perfect sync that he and Zabuza had been in released the energy which shot out towards the alarmed group of mercenaries who had saw the glow. It was too late however, as the attack had hit the middle of the camp, which was immediately trapped in a giant glacier that had frozen the whole camp. The group watched in amazement at the power behind the attack and the sheer size of the attack. However, the attack was not done. Naruto then said something that caught all their interest, now break. Once the words were out of his mouth, the giant glacier shattered into pieces. The attack had ended up killing all the mercenaries at once, not leaving a single survivor. The aura died down as the attack was now finished. Naruto then around and head back to the village while shouting over his shoulder, well, the mission's basically over, let's head back and get some sleep and inform the village what happened. Everyone just nodded, speechless, as they had yet to find the voices after what had just happened. Mission completed. Wave Village. The group had returned to the village to see all the villagers currently arming themselves with anything they could find and looked as if they were about to go off to battle. What are you doing? Naruto asked the villagers while sweat dropping at the sight. He was answered by a villager who seemed to be in charge of the militia, who had his back turned to him and was ordering around the villagers in preparation. What do you mean? What are you doing? We're preparing for battle, of course. We're preparing to charge the bridge and face Geto so those shinobi don't have to be the only ones defending this village. Naruto's sweat drop only grew. Well, you a little late for that then. Geto's already dead and his mercenary army destroyed along with him. What are you talking about? This isn't the time for jokes. The man turned around sputtering. However, his sputtering was stopped when he saw who he was talking to. He then saw a familiar face in the group. Tazuna. What the hell are you doing here? Shouldn't you all be at the bridge right now? No need to. He simply said, confusing the man. What the boy said is true. Geto's dead, we're free. The other villagers then noticed the group, with all of them shocked at what they've heard. Muttering could be heard throughout the crowd. Some of it was along the lines of, is it really true? Geto's dead. We're free. Tazuna nodded to the gathered people, and then a tidal wave of emotions were released. People could be seen cheering, crying, while some people could only remain quiet as if the news hadn't truly hit home yet. The group of shinobi then detached themselves from the group and headed back to Tazuna's house to let the people celebrate to themselves at their newfound freedom. Time skip. Tazuna's house. When the group had arrived to Tazuna's house, they all headed to bed with the exhaustion from the day catching up to them. It was now the next day and Naruto was currently waking up. He tried to get up but found an extra weight on his chest not allowing him to. What's this? What's on me? Naruto started to wake up more and his mind becoming clearer. Oh, that's right, me and Haku had to share a futon because there weren't enough rooms or futons. A blush then spread across his face as he now figured out what, or rather who, was resting on his chest. She must have rolled over while she was sleeping. How the hell did I not wake up though? Naruto then calmed himself while the blush disappeared. Well, it doesn't matter, I need to get up without waking her up. I guess that'll work. Naruto then created a cage bunshin and used kawarimi on it and then dispelled the bunshin, effectively freeing himself out from under a still sleeping Haku. He then quietly exited the room so as not to wake her up while going to check on who else is awake. He entered the main room to find Zabuza and Kakashi talking while he was able to hear the sounds of breakfast being made by Tsunami. Kakashi noticed him and greeted him. "Hey Naruto. Good morning. Why don't you sit down?" Naruto did just that while Tazuna also entered the room with a "good morning." The four of them then just sat around and talked amongst themselves until a shout of "breakfast is ready" could be heard from the kitchen. The four of them got up while Kakashi turned to Naruto. "Why don't you wake Haku up while I wake the other two?" Naruto then went back to his room and returned a minute later with Haku, who was currently rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. Naruto then felt a chakra source dashing straight towards Haku, which he ended up intercepting before it could harm the drowsy girl. He narrowed his eyes when he finally recognized whose chakra he felt. "Hey Tem, mind explaining to me what you think you're doing?" Sasuke jerked his arm out of Naruto's grip while glaring at him. In his hand was a kunai that would have stabbed Haku had Naruto not stopped him. "I was just paying the bitch back for how she humiliated me yesterday." Sasuke spat while he prepared to throw the kunai that was still in his hand. With his arm pulled back, Sasuke was about to throw the kunai only for someone to grab his hand, stopping him. "If I remember correctly, all she was doing was sticking with the plan, while apparently you were not." Turning around, he was shocked to see the blonde. Thinking it was a clone, he turned his head to where he thought the original was, only to find nobody there. Kakashi then spoke up from next to Naruto, who had tried to stop Sasuke himself. "Don't bother. There was never a clone. That was all speed." "Speed? Are you telling me he's that fast? Damn it, why is the Dobi so strong?" Sasuke thought to himself while he was glaring pure hatred towards said Dobi. "It has to be that weapon he used. There's no other way. I swear I'll make it mine and show the Dobi." He then snatched his hand away from Naruto again while going into the main room. Naruto turned towards Hakuto, whose eyes were wide at how close she was to death while she had not been fully awake. "Come on Haku-chan. Let's go have some breakfast," Naruto said with a smile on his face. Alright," she said while Naruto put a hand on her shoulder to try to assure her that she will be alright. Seeing her calming down, Naruto then led her towards the table to where the food had already been set by Zabuza and Tazuna. Everyone but Sasuke and Sakura then gathered around the table and started to eat breakfast. Naruto then spoke up and asked a question that was on his mind. "So what do you two plan to do now?" The question had been directed towards Zabuza and Haku, who looked towards the blonde while Zabuza answered, "Truthfully, we were just going to just keep moving around while avoiding Kiri." Naruto then finally asked the question he had been waiting to ask. "So, why don't you two join Konoha?" This got everyone's attention, but Zabuza seemed to be not so keen on the idea. "I don't know, we're both missing Nin, plus we have no loyalty to Konoha." "Are you sure you want to keep moving around though? Zabuza, come with me for a sec, I need to talk with you about something," Naruto said while getting up and out from his seat. He then exited the room with Zabuza following him. "Zabuza, let me ask you, do you really think it's best for Haku to keep moving all over the place, always on the run from Kiri?" Naruto asked, while Zabuza gained a thoughtful look. "He's right. Haku doesn't deserve this life, but I'm still not sure about joining another village." "Zabuza, you took this mission for Gato so you could gather money to try another attempt at the Mizukage's life," Naruto said, shocking Zabuza. "Well, what if I told you Konoha is trying to make an alliance with the rebel faction of Kiri? Most likely Konoha will send some shinobi over to Kiri to help the rebel faction. If you join the village, you'd probably be selected for this mission since you're familiar with Kiri." Zabuza was speechless at what he had just been told. Is he telling me the truth? If so, I may finally have another chance. "Alright, I'll join. But is Haku going to be okay? I mean her bloodline?" Zabuza asked with what sounded like worry. "You don't have to worry. Konoha already has many bloodlines. She'd actually be welcomed by the council itself probably if it allows Konoha to have another bloodline." Naruto dismissed his worries. Alright, let me inform Haku of what's going to happen. You should tell your sensei also, Zabuza said before the two of them went back to the dining room. Bridge. Team 7 along with Haku and Zabuza were currently standing before Tezuna's family as they were about to leave. Tezuna was currently thanking the group for what they have done for them and the completion of the bridge. Thank you for everything. Don't worry, we'll come and visit sometime, Naruto said cheerfully, while Inari seemed to be holding back tears. With their goodbyes said, the group turned around and started to cross the bridge as they headed back towards Konoha. That boy was able to change everyone's hearts and freed us from Geto. He's given us the courage this village desperately needed, Tezuna stated while looking at Naruto. Ah, right, the bridge needs a name, Tezuna thought to himself out loud. Hearing this, Inari turned towards his grandfather. How about we name it the Great Naruto Bridge? Time skip. Hokage's office. The group had finally reached Konoha and was immediately brought to the Hokage's office once the gate guards were able to notice who exactly was traveling with Team 7. Now the group found themselves standing before the Hokage as Kakashi was giving a report of what had happened during the mission. Once Kakashi had finished giving a recap of what happened, the Hokage finally spoke up. So let me get this straight. Zabuza, who is a missing nin, and his daughter wish to join Konoha. His answer was a nod from both Zabuza and Haku. He then turned to face Naruto. And it was your idea to let them join. Naruto decided to speak up instead of giving a simple nod. Yes, it was my idea. The village could benefit from having Zabuza join since he was Anbu rank while he was still a part of Kiri. Also, Haku has a bloodline, so I'm sure the council won't have any problems. Hiruzen nodded at this. If she has a bloodline, the council would probably do anything they could to have her join. Alright, I'll let them join, but they will be observed by Anbu for the first few months. But this is mainly a precaution. Also, Naruto, since it was your idea to let them join, they will be your responsibility, Hiruzen stated. All that's left is to bring it up with the council, but they'll probably have no objections to letting someone of Zabuza's strength and Haku's bloodline in joining the village. You're dismissed. Council room. A meeting had been called by the Hokage to inform the council about the two new additions to the village, but apparently there was a different topic that the civilian side wished to discuss. Hiruzen had mainly been putting this off, but he knew it would arise sooner or later. The subject that was being argued back and forth was the return on one Naruto Uzumaki and about his new status as genin. How dare he show his face again? I say we should have him banished and rid ourselves of him for good, shouted a particularly overweight civilian councilman who was head of a chain of grocery stores. Naruto is a shinobi of this village. He has done nothing wrong to warrant banishment, Inochi said calmly. Inochi and most of the clan heads held nothing against Naruto. They could see that he truly wasn't the Kyuubi. The civilians, however, could see the boy as nothing but a demon. Their only desire is to rid themselves of Naruto. If not banishment, then he should at least not be a shinobi. Who knows what he'll do, shouted another civilian councilman. Not only that, but you put him on the same teams as Uchiha-sama. I demand the boy be removed from Uchiha-sama's team. Who knows how he might corrupt him. Quiet, Hiruzen said, his nerves long since tested by the foolish civilians. Naruto is a shinobi of this village and a genin of Team 7, and it shall stay this way unless I say so. Hiruzen had successfully stopped all protests from the civilians' side, only for a new voice to arise. Hiruzen, you should give the boy to me so I can train him to be a weapon for this village. Danzo, as I had just stated, Naruto will stay in Team 7 under the command of Kakashi Hatake, who will be the only one to train the boy. Danzo glared at Hiruzen at being denied. Hiruzen, you are fool. The Jinchuriki would be a powerful weapon if trained correctly as a mindless and emotionless tool. Now on to the topic of why I have truly called you all here today, Hiruzen said while all of the councilmen watched him interest. Today Zabuza Momochi and Haku Momochi have joined the village. This got many gasps from the shinobi side that recognized the name of the demon of the bloody mist. Shukaku decided to voice this thought in a dull, lazy tone. and why would the demon of the bloody mist who was a missing nin from Kurigakure join our village? To be truthful, it's more like he was recruited to join our village by a shinobi of this village along with his daughter, he said, gaining shocked looks from all around. Who recruited him? Many voices called out, too many to identify who specifically called out. Ironically, it was a person who we were just discussing about a moment ago, was their answer. This brought upon mixed responses from both sides of the council. The shinobi side was happy at the successful recruitment of such a strong and powerful shinobi, while the civilian side, however, was shouting out conspiracy theories of how Naruto was creating his own squad of shinobi to destroy Konoha. Quiet. And again Hiruzen had to raise his voice to calm both sides. As I said, Zabuza Momochi and Haku Momochi will be joining the village, also Haku has the Hyoten bloodline. Now everyone's attention was gathered upon Haku instead of Zabuza. I thought the Hyoten bloodline died out. Wait, since she's Zabuza's daughter, does he have the bloodline? Shuza asked. Haku and Zabuza are not related by blood. From what I heard, Zabuza had found Haku after her mother was killed. Since then she was raised as his daughter. Most of the councilmen were let down at the loss of another potential member of the Hyoten bloodline, but their mood was still high at gaining at least one bloodline user. Then there were many shout-outs by civilian councilmen who demanded to have Haku married to their sons so as to gain control over the bloodline. Haku will not be married and will be allowed to choose who she marries. Besides, do you really wish to demand the demon of the bloody mist to hand over his daughter? Hiruzen smirked at how all the councilmen who were demanding the girl to be married off a second ago looked as if they'd seen their own death, which they very well may have. This meeting is over, Hiruzen said before walking back to his office. He turned to his secretary. Call for the Junin senseis and the people who will be the Chunin proctors. Hiruzen went into his office and waited for about 15 minutes until everyone had been gathered. I have called you all here for one reason. The Chunin exams, which will be in 7 days. So first I would like to hear from the Junin senseis if they think their team is ready. Kakashi was the first to speak up. I nominate Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Naruto Uzumaki for the Chunin exams. This was followed by both Kurenai and Asuma nominating all 3 members of their team to participate in the Chunin exams. This brought upon the disapproval of Iruka. I don't believe they are ready for the Chunin exams yet. Kakashi decided to interrupt Iruka before he could go on. Actually, I have to disagree. I believe a member of my team is indeed ready for the exams. The other 2 would probably benefit from this. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at this. And who do you believe from your team is ready for this exam? Everyone else was wondering this too, although the person they expected him to point out was the Uchiha. However, Kakashi had other plans. I believe the one ready for the exams is Naruto Uzumaki. This surprised many of the Chunin and the other Junin senseis, but wasn't he a dead last while he was at the academy? One of the Chunin proctors asked. He was the dead last of his class until after he went missing for a year. Kakashi corrected them. From what I heard in some of the sections of the Genin exam, he was able to beat the Uchiha. So, how do you think your other 2 would benefit from this? Asuma asked, although he had a clue since it was probably the same reason he signed up his Genin. Mostly it's to gain experience, but I have a motive that deals with both of them. For the Uchiha, I hope that this may level out his arrogance if he were to see how strong some people his age really are. For Sakura, well, this is more of a reality check that I wish to provide for her. It is to allow her to see how deadly being a shinobi is, and she will either see how weak she is and either quit being a shinobi or strive to gain more strength. However, there is a third option, that she will remain the same and continue on as a fangirl. Everyone was silent, seeing the logic in Kakashi's decision, and no further argument was brought forth. With Naruto. Naruto was currently walking around Konoha after returning from the mission in Wave, trying to decide what to do. Finally, he decided to go see if Hinata was on a mission or not and to see if she wanted to have lunch with him at Ichiraku's. However, his plans were put to stop when he came upon a certain sight. The sight was of Konohamaru being lifted up by the front of his scarf by what looked like a man dressed in a cat outfit while his face was covered in makeup. Besides the two, he could also see two other kids around Konohamaru's age trying to save him and a woman next to the person holding Konohamaru. He was about to go down and figure out what was going on until he noticed the symbol on the headbands they were wearing. What are Suna Nin doing here? Naruto disappeared from the spot where he had been spectating and appeared right next to the boy holding Konohamaru, while his hand was currently gripping on the arm that was holding Konohamaru. If I were you, I would put the boy down. Everyone looked at him in surprise, while the makeup-wearing Suna Nin was very surprised at finding a person appear next to him all of a sudden. Where the hell did he come from? I didn't sense anyone. The other Suna Nin's surprise was almost as much as her brother's, although there was a light blushing on her face. She got a look at him. Wow, he's hot. Konohamaru's surprise, however, turned into a joy once he recognized who came to save him. Boss. Seeing as nothing was being done, Naruto applied some pressure to the boy's wrist, making him let go of Konohamaru. Now would you explain to me who you are and what you think you're doing with the Hokage's grandson? The Suna Nin paled at the revelation of who he was about to hurt, however he glared at the blonde before him. Actually, before you answer that, how about the two people behind the tree over there come out? Naruto said without looking at said tree. A moment later Sasuke appeared while standing on a tree branch. Damn, how'd the Dobi find me? Wait, didn't he say two people? To his surprise, he found a person standing upside down on a branch just above his own. When did he? Kankuro, stop it. You're an embarrassment to our village, the boy said, which seemed to make Kankuro break out into a nervous sweat. Gaara. Well, it seems I've got two of your names. Now I only need the name of the pretty one, Naruto said offhandedly to himself, although it seems that the girl had heard his comment. If the increase in blush was anything to go by, Tamari, my name is Tamari. Sasuke and Gaara then disappeared and reappeared from off the tree and onto the street. Gaara then faced towards the group of Leaf Genin and students. Since you know ours, how about you tell us your name? Sasuke, who believed that the question was directed to him, was about to answer, only for him to be interrupted before he could even start. Not you, him, Gaara said while pointing towards the blindfolded shinobi. Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto said, with Gaara nodding at this before turning around. I hope you will be in the Chunin exams. If you are, I look forward to fighting you. With that, he and his siblings disappeared while Naruto was contemplating on what he had been told. Chunin exams, I'll have to talk to Kakashi about that. Naruto then turned his gaze to where he felt three other chakra signatures that had been watching them the whole time, only to find the branch empty and the signatures gone. A little ways away from them and out of sight, three figures were talking amongst themselves. So what do you think? Nothing serious. But we'll have to watch out for the one with the gourd and definitely watch out for the one with the blindfold if he could actually sense us. While the third figure was blushing to herself thinking about said blindfolded shinobi, but steeled herself, not allowing herself to become a fangirl. Time skip next day. Team 7 was currently waiting for their sensei to appear, although Naruto had only appeared about 5 minutes ago while the other two had been waiting for over 2.5 hours. He was currently ignoring the shrieking from the pink-haired banshee about him being late. When will she ever get it that I'm not late if the sensei hasn't even arrived yet? He was brought out of his thoughts at the voice of his sensei. Morning. Sorry I was late, I got lost on the road of life. Ah, the road of life. That's understandable. I mean, there are many twists and turns, Naruto said cheerfully while the other two gained tick marks. Hee hee. Thanks for understanding, Naruto. Well, anyways, I've nominated you guys for the Chunin selection exams, he said while handing them the applications for the exam. With that, Kakashi left while Naruto left a second later. Time skip next day. Again. Naruto was currently entering the Chunin exam halls with his two other teammates while looking around at the competition. The two then went up to the second floor only to see a group of people being held up by two genin. Must be a genjutsu. The exams are on the third floor, also those two their chakra levels are around that of a chunin. Must be proctors to cut down the competition. Please let us through. A girl asked the two chunins only for one of them to backhand her, or he would have if his hand hadn't been stopped. Don't you think that's taking it a bit too far? Naruto asked the chunin. Naruto then turned around to face the girl who was about to be hit. Are you alright? The girl blushed at the attention she was getting from the blindfolded blonde. Why yes, I'm alright. Why am I blushing like some fangirl? Damn it. It's not like the blow would have hurt me, but, the girl thought to herself while trying to fight down the blush. The two shinobi then started to give a speech of how they were just getting rid of those who weren't ready and the responsibilities of a chunin. Sasuke then stepped forward and spoke up. You will let me pass, and you will also remove the genjutsu. I'm going to the third floor. Then Sakura started saying how she also noticed the genjutsu because this was the second floor, while Naruto had to resist the urge to face palm. Great, first Sasuke has to help the competition. Also anyone who can count should have known this was a genjutsu. One of the chunin then tried to attack Sasuke while Sasuke tried to retaliate only for both of their legs to be caught. Naruto looked at the boy who had stopped them both with a bit of respect and interest. Not bad. He's pretty fast and he was also able to stop their kicks with his bare hands. I don't think I sensed any chakra being used either. His teammates then scolded him for ruining the plan by showing his strength early on, and then a blush covered the boy's face as he started to walk towards Sakura. The boy then introduced himself. My name is Rock Lee, and yours is Sakura. He then gave her a thumbs up while his teeth actually seemed to sparkle. Let's go out together. I'll protect you. Till I die. He was instantly rejected. Then another boy walked up to Sasuke. What's your name? The two traded comments with one asking the name of the other and the other denying an answer. Inwardly, however, Sasuke was smirking at how he was recognized instead of his blonde teammate. That's how it should be, me an elite being recognized instead of the dobi. Naruto could only sigh at the scene. Great, two stuck up nobles with a stick up their ass. Naruto then noticed the girl of the trio walking towards him. Thank you for helping me earlier. My name's Tenten, by the way. Naruto let a smile cross his face. Name's Naruto. It was nice to meet you. Also, I'm sure you could have handled yourself. Tenten blushed but noticed that her team was starting to move on. It was nice to meet you. Good luck in the exam. She started to head towards the stairs with her team only to notice that Lee had stopped moving. Come on, Lee. What are you doing? Just give me a moment. There's something I wish to test, Lee said while his attention was directed at a certain Uchiha. Hey, guy with dark eyes, will you fight me right here? Why should I waste my time fighting against you right before the exams? Sasuke asked as if the boy wasn't even worth his time. Oblivious to the insult, Lee responded with, I wish to test my techniques against you, the offspring of the genius clan. Plus, he then turned towards Sakura and stared at her before suddenly winking at her. This received a scream of disgust from said girl while commenting on the boy's looks. You are an angel, the boy said while blowing a kiss at Sakura, who bent backwards to dodge the heart that somehow was created from Lee while hitting her head in the process. Naruto could barely contain his laughter at this moment as he was hunched over with a hand over his mouth. You are a fool to challenge me knowing that I'm an Uchiha. You're about to learn what this name means. Thick brows. Sasuke glared at the boy. Naruto's contained laughter came out instead as a sigh at his teammate's remark. Idiot, that arrogance will get him killed and or humiliated one of these days. Sasuke, we only have 30 mintus. Naruto commented only to be blown off by the Uchiha. I only need 5. Sasuke then charged at Lee while Naruto watched on. Naruto watched as Sasuke's guard was destroyed time and time again, while the Uchiha was trying to figure out what type of jutsu was being used. He then saw Sasuke activate his bloodline, the Sharingan, like that will do him any good. As Naruto had predicted, the Sharingan had changed nothing as Sasuke was kicked straight up with a kick by Lee. Naruto then saw Lee appear behind Lee and reveal how he was winning. I am using taijutsu, and even if you can read my movements, you do not have the speed to react to my attacks. Seems his humiliation came sooner than I thought, but now that he knows this information, how will he react to it? Naruto thought to himself while agreeing with Lee's logic. Lee's bandages came undone on his arms, but before he could do any more, a pinwheel was stabbed into one of his bandages. That's enough, Lee. Naruto was currently questioning his chakra sensing abilities, because no matter how he looked at it, the source of the voice belonged to a turtle. Is it a summon? Said turtle was currently berating Lee for what he was about to do and how the move is forbidden. All of a sudden there was a poof of smoke on the turtle's back, and out of the smoke appeared an older version of Lee with a Junin vest. The man suddenly punched Lee, surprising everyone there except the duo. Then they were even more surprised when the two started crying and hugging. It's all right, Lee. Youth and mistakes go together, the older version said, while Lee was currently looking up to him. You were too nice, sensei. But you did start a fight and almost broke my rules. Your punishment will take place after the Chun exam, 500 laps around the practice range. Guy then turned his attention towards the other team of genin in the room. Hey you guys, how's Kakashi-sensei doing? Ah, this must be that annoying rival Kakashi must have always been talking about, Naruto thought before he heard Sasuke ask how the man knows Kakashi. Hee. Well, me and Kakashi are, he started to say before disappearing from next to Lee, eternal rivals. Sasuke and Sakura turned around in surprise when they heard the voice behind them. Guy glanced at Naruto from the corner of his eye. Interesting, he didn't even flinch. Could he have actually kept up with me? 50 wins and 49 losses. I am stronger than Kakashi, Guy said, turning his attention back towards Sasuke while his teeth actually seemed to sparkle. Anyway, you three and Lee should head over to the classroom, Guy said while throwing a kunai to dislodge the pinwheel that was pinning Lee's bandage to the wall. Lee left, leaving some parting word to Sasuke, while Sasuke himself was shaking in fury. Again I have lost to some no-named shinobi who doesn't even belong to a clan. He then turned his anger towards Naruto. His thoughts, however, were focused upon the weapon that he wielded. I swear after this exam I'm going to the council to get that damn weapon. That way I'll never lose again and put them all in their place. The team of three then continued towards the classroom for the Chunin exam on the 3rd floor, only to find Kakashi there waiting for them. Good, all three of you are here. You can now properly take the exam, Kakashi said once the three of them neared him. What do you mean? Sakura asked Kakashi, only to be answered by Naruto. He means that unless all three of us were here we wouldn't be able to take the exam. Seeing the questioning looks, Kakashi decided to elaborate on what the blonde had said. I gave all three of you the choice so none of you would be pressured into taking the exam just to please the other two. Bus you all came of your own free will. You guys can now go. With that, the three genin of Team 7 walked through the door and into the classroom that would be the setting for the first part of the Chunin exam. Chunin exams commence. Classroom. The three walked into the room only to stop once they notice how all the other genin in the classroom were currently staring at them. Naruto and Sasuke were currently scanning over the potential enemies that they would have to face off against in the Chunin exams, while Sakura was a little intimidated by the sheer amount of people that would be taking the exam. All three of them, however, were brought out of their musings as Naruto was hugged from behind. The person then identified herself by greeting the blindfolded blonde. Hey Naruto, I haven't seen you for a while. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his fellow blonde while returning the greeting. Hey Ino-chan, we just returned from a mission about a week ago. The rest of her team joined her as she got off of Naruto's back. You guys taking this stupid test too? Hey Shikamaru. Choji, Naruto greeted the other two members of Team 10. The group was then greeted by another familiar voice. Yahoo, found you. Hello. The only female team greeted her former classmates while blushing at the sight of her crush boyfriend. Hey Hinata. Naruto cheerfully greeted the girl while on the inside he was panicking a little. Damn, I still need to tell her about CRA. Hey, don't forget about us, the genin with the dog on his head said. Hee, you're too loud to forget Kiba, he joked before turning to Shino and giving a small nod as greeting which the quiet boy returned. Kiba opened his mouth to retort back at the joke from the blonde only to be interrupted by an unfamiliar voice. Hey you guys, you should be more quiet. You guys are rookies just out of the academy, right? Sheesh, this isn't a picnic. The group of genin turned towards the voice to find a gray-haired genin with a Konoha headband. Ino decided to ask the question that was on all of their minds. Who are you? I'm Kabuto. But instead of that, look behind you, the now identified Kabuto said to the group of genin. What he didn't see though was how one of the genin seemed to tense up when he had mentioned his name. Naruto's current thoughts were of the gray-haired genin currently talking. Kabuto, if I'm correct, that's the name of Orochimaru's current right-hand man. Even though he's trying to suppress it right now, I can still identify the Junin level chakra levels. There's no mistake, it's the same person. What's he doing here though in Konoha, in the Chunin exams? The others, oblivious to Naruto's thoughts, were currently looking behind only to find themselves confronted by a multitude of glares being sent towards them from all the other genin in the room. Kabuto then spoke up again. Everyone is nervous about the exam. Quiet down before you cause a scene. Some of the rookies from the group started to sweat a little at all the glares they were getting. Seeing this, Kabuto decided to ease up a little on them. Well, I can't blame you, you're clueless rookies. Sakura then proceeded to ask if this was the genin's second attempt at the exam, only for him to reveal that it was in fact his seventh, which made Naruto even more suspicious of him. Kabuto then took out a set of cards. Even though I've failed a lot, I have been able to gather information. How about I share some of this info with you rookies? Kabuto then went on explaining what the cards do and how to use the. He then showed them by using one of the cards to bring up a map of the elemental nations that had information on which villages had sent genin to the exam and how many genin from each village. Do you have cards with info on individuals? Sasuke asked, while the response he got was a confirmation that Kabuto did indeed have them. Show me the cards for Gaara of the Hidden Sand, Rock Lee from Leaf, he said before glaring towards Naruto, and Naruto from Leaf. The last name Sasuke said gained the interest and confusion of those around him, wondering why he would want info on his own teammate, while Naruto himself was wondering what info this person might have on him. Kabuto then went on and drew 3 cards from the deck of cards and added chakra to them while reading the info off of the first 2, same as canon. Finally he turned to the last of the 3 cards, and lastly Naruto Uzumaki. He's obviously the same age as you 3 with a mission history of D rank 12, it's just a random number, I have no clue how many he actually did in canon. Oh, here's something interesting. Apparently his team originally had a C rank mission that was upgraded to an A rank. Those around them then looked at the members of Team 7 in shock at the revelation that they had ended up completing a rank mission, while Sasuke seemed to have a smug smirk on his face. Oh, never mind, here's something even more interesting. It seems he had a solo mission given to him that was also an A rank, Kabuto said. Now everyone was looking at Naruto in shock at learning that he had actually completed another A rank mission, but this time on his own, while Sasuke's smirk turned into a glare towards the blonde. It appears he has been missing for a year for reasons unknown, while any information of what happened during that year is also unknown. Suddenly Kabuto's eyes widened while he stared at Naruto in shock at what he had just read. How did you? Kabuto could only stutter in shock, gaining confused looks from all except the person in question. Kabuto then decided to enlighten the group of what had shocked him. Apparently you fought and defeated one Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the bloody mist, who was an A rank missing nin. Now everyone who heard what Kabuto had just said were now staring at shock at the young blindfolded genin except for the two people of him team who had been there to see it happen, although one of the two was currently glaring at him. All of a sudden 3 people dashed through the group of genin and headed straight for Kabuto. One of the 3 jumped up and threw 2 kunai at Kabuto who had dodged backwards while another of the genin charged straight at him. The genin took a swing at Kabuto who had jerked his head back to dodge the attack only for his glasses to shatter and for him to double over and puke. Naruto had not interfered to see how the situation would play out while he gauged the skills of the attackers and identified the method that was used to hurt Kabuto. Before further confrontation could be enacted, a cloud of smoke appeared while a voice shouted out, "Quiet down, you worthless bastards." From the smoke appeared the Chunin proctors for first part of the Chunin exam, while the man in front of all of them spoke up. "Thanks for waiting. I am Morino Ibiki, the examiner for the Chunin selection exam's first test." He then pointed to the group that was causing all of the commotion in the back. "Sit down and stop doing as you please or else you will all be failed." The group complied and sat at the available seats while waiting for whatever else the man had to say. Seeing everyone's attention directed to him, Ibiki spoke up. "We will now start the first test in the Chunin exam. Instead of your current seating arrangements, you will pick one of these slips and sit in the seat assigned to you. We will then hand out the exams." Everyone then stood up from their seats and lined up in front of a Chunin proctor who had a box in front of him filled with slips that had a seat number assigned on them. Naruto was currently facing a different problem while he was waiting in line. "Crap, how am I supposed to see what's written down on the test?" However, it seemed that all of his worries were misplaced because the moment his turn was up, the instructor Ibiki solved his problem for him. "Ah, you must be Naruto Uzumaki. Seeing as you are incapable of reading the paper, we have an audio version of the test prepared for you and a paper to write down your answers." The Chunin proctor then picked a slip for him and told him where to sit while handing him a small record player with the test on it and a blank paper. Naruto then headed towards the direction he was assigned to, then smiled to himself once recognizing a familiar chakra source next to his seat. Even though Naruto can create a somewhat chakra detailed map and image inside his head, he can't see details such as words. Taking a seat, he turned towards his neighbor for the test. "Hey Hinata, seems like I have the pleasure of sitting next to you during the test." Hinata blushed but returned his greeting. "Why yes, let's do our best." Both of them then turned their attention towards the instructor when he raised his voice to get the attention of the class of Chunin hopefuls. "Alright, listen closely because I will not repeat myself. There are several rules to this exam," Ibiki said to the class, catching their attention. "Rule 1. You all start off with 10 points. For each question you get wrong, you will lose a point. So say if you miss 3 questions, you have 7 points. Second rule. This is a team test. Whether or not you fail is based off of the combined scores of all 3 teammates. The third and most important rule. If you are caught cheating, you will lose 2 points per attempt that is caught. If you are caught 5 times, then you automatically fail this exam. Finally, if even one person on a team has 0 points, then that person's other 2 teammates will also be failed alongside that person." Once all the rules were said, the first exam had officially begun. Everyone was currently either panicking over the difficulty of the questions or had already figured out the truth behind the third rule of the exam, while Naruto on the other hand was just listening though the audio recording of the different questions with mild interest. All the questions seemed to be asking what should be done in a certain situation and the reasons and logic behind the answer. Naruto then started to answer question after question with the things he would do if he found himself in any of the situations. Amusingly enough, Naruto was writing what he would do in the situations, forgetting to give the answers that would be expected in the situation by any normal Chunin level shinobi. Hinata was glancing from the corner of her eye with astonishment at the rate that Naruto was answering the questions. Wow, he seemed so sure of his answers, completely different from how he would have acted before he had disappeared for a year. Naruto had just finished answering his 9th question and turned off the recorder and putting down his pencil before turning his mind to other matters that had caught his interest. First off were the Chunin level chakra source that he found located around the room, but quickly put that aside as having something to do with the second rule which he had figured out the true meaning behind but had been useless to him. He then focused his mind upon the other chakra source that was currently trying to hit itself but ranked about that of an elite Junin which belonged to the genin that was talking to the group earlier. Now why is someone of that level taking the exam? Could it be for safety reasons later on in the exam? Doubtful. Then there's the information he somehow got his hands on. I'll have to keep a closer eye on him, I guess. Finally, after some teams had been thrown out for cheating, the proctor for the first exam drew everyone's attention to himself again. Time's up. I will now tell you the 10th question, but before that, for this final question there are 2 new rules in addition to the original rules. First off, you may choose whether or not if you would like to take the 10th question. If you decide to not take the test, then you and your teammates will fail, but if you decide to take the final question and answer it wrong, that person will lose the right to take the Chunin selection exam again. As expected, this caused uproar in the class, either trying to deny this claim or just plain panicking at the new additional rule. People started to raise their hands and forfeiting, deciding to not risk it all for the 10th question. Naruto, seeing how people started to leave, decided to speak up. If you are afraid, leave now. There is no place for you if you are afraid to risk yourself now. It is better to give up now if you are afraid. It just means you were not meant to be a shinobi. This had shocked the class into a stunned silence, even taking Ibiki by surprise. The silence though turned into determination. One random person then spoke up. Like hell, we won't let someone like you tell us what we can and can't do. More and more voiced spoke up, rising up to the challenge that has been presented before them, not daring to back down. What no one had seen, however, that on Naruto's face was a small smirk. Well, everyone except Hinata, who was sitting next to him. That is incredible. No one's trying to quit anymore. Could it be Naruto expected this to happen? Ibiki was shocked at what had happened, with thoughts similar to those